I want to thank you for doing this interview and for also offering spaces like Dalit Camera for interviews like this and for discussions like this, because unfortunately these kind of issues are not being discussed in most of the mainstream media. I want to talk today about this new report that has come called the EAT-Lancet Commission report. It was released in April 2019 this year, and it is actually a report prepared by different countries and representation from different groups of people. And from India we have Dr. Srinath Reddy, who's from the Public Health Foundation of India, on that commission. We also have Sunita Narayan, she's from the Center of Science and Environment. And this report is called the EAT-Lancet Commission report, and basically what they're saying is that they are concerned about the nutrition of the 10 billion people in the world and also of the entire planet. So they want to bring out recommendations which will help the planet and will also help to ensure nutrition for the whole world. Now this report, when it was released, it was done in the Food Safety Standards Authority of India office in New Delhi, and it was co-hosted by FSSAI, and also the Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition was a partner. Then the Institute for Rice Research was a partner to this, and there's another group called Tasting India Symposium who are part of this, and they had a lot of students and many government officials. So it was a very it was a government supported event. And what the people in the commission were basically saying is that animal sources of food are dangerous, they're unhealthy, they're bad for the climate, and in fact they're saying it's as bad as if you combine smoking, drinking, with unsafe sex, all of those combined, the animal foods are still worse than that. And then they also saying that India is a very good model because India is a vegetarian country and India mainly eats plant-based foods. We eat very little animal foods, and most of our nutrition comes from legumes and plants. Therefore India is a good model. So the whole discussion was on that, to say that India is a good model for vegetarian foods. Now this has multiple problems. So if you look at the kind of malnutrition in India, if you look at the kind of stunting, children, anywhere between 38 to 40% of the children are stunted. That means they're not reaching the heights that they're supposed to reach. And there's also undernutrition. In that situation, the consequences on the child during their childhood and also as adults is very serious. These same people also had more risk when they grow up of getting non-communicable diseases like obesity or diabetes or hypertension. And we also have like 50 to 60% of anemia in the country. Adolescent girls, so if they already have anemia, you can imagine what is the consequences, like when they become pregnant, or even if they have a little issue related to blood loss, they go into severe anemia. And in India, the maternal deaths, the biggest cause of maternal deaths is nutritional anemia. Women just bleed to death because of low hemoglobin. We also have very high levels of vitamin A deficiency, which is the most preventable cause of night blindness and permanent blindness in children. We also have zinc deficiency, which has been known to be associated with diarrheas and other respiratory infections. So how can they say India is a model when these statistics are national data, it is available, it is widely publicized, and for these people to come from these countries like Sweden and outside, and for India to be part of that, to say that India is a model. So that is one big flaw, that what kind of model are you looking at? Are you saying that people who eat less and people who don't have access to enough food is your model? Then the second thing which they say is that India is vegetarian. Again, this is a myth that everyone keeps on reinforcing. They keep saying India is vegetarian, but that is not true. Most of the data shows that almost 80% of Indians are meat eaters. But the way some of this data is collected is they ask you, have you eaten meat in the last 1 month? And the way meat, the supply of meat, or the social situation around meat, even people who want to eat meat are not able to eat in many situations. So if you come and ask someone who is struggling to feed their family, did you eat meat in the last month? And if they say no, then you classify them as vegetarian. So again, it is not a accurate data. Also, because of the social taboos around meat eating, a lot of people don't acknowledge in public that they eat meat. So what we call closet meat eaters, they will eat in public, or eat with friends, go home and pretend to be vegetarian, and when they participate in all these surveys, they say no, we are vegetarian. So the actual amount, the numbers of people who are vegetarian is much less than what is projected in the data, and the number of people who eat meat is much more than what is projected in the data. So in India, we have almost 180 million people who eat beef. And if you look at the kind of politics around beef, over time it has become so criminalized that people even talk or put pictures on Facebook. They get arrested and they get picked up, they get abused, they get harassed. So one big source of nutrition for people is being denied, and we are seeing the similar thing happening with eggs now. So when this kind of culture is already happening, where people's eating habits is being erased and criminalized, for this kind of commission to come and say that India is vegetarian, it seems very deliberate, and it seems like they're reinforcing the social taboos and prejudices that are already there in India. And the other thing that they say is that they say that now India has a dual burden of malnutrition. We have some groups which have undernutrition, where they don't have access to enough food, and you have some people who have access to food but they're not eating healthy, they're not eating the right kind of food. So you have undernutrition, you also have obesity, and you have other cardiovascular diseases. What these people are saying in the commission report is that both of these are from the same, the cause of this is the same. That is not necessarily true, and the reason they're trying to say it is that as though the solution for both is also the same. But the solution for undernutrition in India is definitely that people need more access to animal foods. They need more milk, they need more milk products, they need dairy, they need eggs, they need butter, they need ghee, they need meat, poultry, and most of people are being denied that. And for the people who have like unhealthy eating habits, it's about, also for them animal foods are important, because if you look at how chronic diseases evolve, it's related to poor nutrition, as in poor access to animal foods in your childhood. So basically your organs have not developed properly, your pancreas, your kidney, your internal organs, your muscles, they've not been able to develop properly, which puts you at more risk when you grow older to these non-communicable diseases. And on top of that, if you're also eating junk foods and processed foods and high sugar, refined carbohydrates and added salts, then your risk multiplies. So a lot of these diseases, they're multifactorial. So when they say that the risk from diet is more than the combination of unsafe sex and smoking and alcoholism, it is a silly statement to make, because a lot of factors come together to create poor health in people. And people who don't take care of their health, who lead a high risk lifestyle, they're also likely to eat poorly. So you cannot just take the poor eating and say that is the cause of all the problems in the world. And the other thing is, in their own report they say that eggs are good and fish is good, and then they say but eat plants. So it doesn't even make sense. Like they say fish reduces cardiovascular disease, fish has omega-3 fatty acids, fish is gives you excellent health, but you eat 0 to 100 grams. Why will you recommend someone to eat 0 grams when it is you yourself are saying that it is nutritionally superior? And they're saying we should look for the same things in plants, although we don't know whether plants have it or not. That is what the report is saying. And the other thing that they're saying is children under 2 should be given animal foods, and children above 2 should not be given animal foods. Try to reduce in them. In fact, they say adolescents, they're a good way to control the eating habits. The government should try to control the eating habits and ensure plant-based foods through adolescence. So what are they trying to say? That what is going to happen to the culture of eating? If children are less than 2, you'll give them eggs, and after 3 years you'll tell them stop eating eggs, is it? Or when one child is getting eggs, you'll tell the other child, no, you're about 2 years, you will not get eggs. So their whole logic, their whole framework is only to promote plant-based foods. Now why are they promoting plant-based foods? Because what they want to do is, see, the kind of plant-based foods that they're talking about is they're talking about legumes, that is like what we eat, like peas and other pulses that we have, and soya bean. In fact, they're saying they're recommending more soya bean than animal foods. And the reason is because these can be cultivated cheaply. You cannot just pluck a soya bean and eat it. You have to give it to a company. The company has to process it. So they will process it, they will package it, they will price it, and then they will give it to you. And this is what they're expecting us to, as we go forward. That's the kind of nutrition that they're expecting us to live with, where you take some of these very cheap vegetable sources of vegetable foods and process it, add some additional vitamins, minerals, trans fats, salts, sugars, you add it, and then you sell it to people. Now this is a big market, and in fact, if you look at the FSSAI, they have a lot of conflict of interest. It has been criticized. The kind of private companies and big corporates, multinationals that are sitting in FSSAI, definitely the agenda is driven by them. The agenda is not to meet the nutritional needs of some of our poorest communities, but it is to ensure profits for these companies. And you have the Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition, which is openly pushing for fortification. Now what is fortification? Basically, you take a cereal which doesn't have nutrients, and instead of giving them food which has nutrients, what you do is you add those nutrients to the rice or wheat or oil or milk. And the lot of disadvantages of fortification. One is, locally we don't have the system to fortify in India, so we have to open the market to companies from outside. So India is thinking to give a contract to 5 companies, multinationals based outside, contract ranging from 3,000 crores just to 5 companies to fortify food. And then what happens is, it's like salt. Now iodized salt is the only salt. You have to buy it from a packet. You cannot manufacture your own salt. It's banned. Unless it's iodized, the salt is banned. They'll do the similar thing for all of this. They'll say you cannot grow your own rice and you cannot eat your own rice. You have to take it, you have to give it to a company. The company will fortify it. And there's enough research to show that fortification doesn't really help in terms of nutrition. If when women are cleaning the rice, they remove the grains which are fortified because it's a little darker, and the rice itself has a different flavor and a different taste when it is fortified. The acceptability of this by the community is very low. And then when you wash it, some of it is lost, some of that fortification is lost, and when you cook it at high temperatures, again some of it is lost. So the benefits of it is very low. And if you look at any government recommendation, they'll say your child has anemia, give iron tablets. In fact, this EAT-Lancet commission is saying the same thing. What they're saying is eating animal foods has side effects. So instead of giving animal foods to the adolescent girls, give them tablets. So imagine in 10 years, all our children will be on tablets. They will not know what is the other source of iron for them. And iron is not like your body just takes iron and it converts it into hemoglobin. You need other things, you need other vitamins, you need other minerals, you need proteins to convert that iron into a good quality hemoglobin. So nobody is really thinking of this, and this EAT-Lancet commission, there's very little criticism of it. I think all of us have to be really concerned about what is happening to our eating habits. In fact, most of our mothers and grandmothers have an understanding of what is good nutrition. If you see people even who cannot afford animal foods, they will go to the shop and buy some spare parts, and they'll add it to the cooking, and they all know that with that the child will eat little more. A child who's usually fussy if there's some dry fish or some meat, the child will eat better. And all this knowledge is being lost, and the people who make these policies, most of them are themselves vegetarians, but the kind of vegetarianism that they have is much different from what they're trying to give to the poor communities, because they have access to the animal proteins like from milk and dairy, which we know that most of the poor communities are not able to afford. So my only suggestion to people is that we have to reclaim our traditional eating practices, and we have to challenge this whole vegetarian business model of food that is coming in. It's a very homogeneous kind of model where they say all of us have to eat the same food. If you go to a shop in Tamil Nadu, or you go to a shop in a village in Andhra Pradesh, you will still pick the same package of food manufactured by the same company, and only 5 or 6 companies will be holding the government to ransom. Instead of all our local varieties and our local diversity and all our local traditions, it will become a very homogenized model, and we really need to question that.
Is this something to do with the Brahminism? Okay. Is it this entire policy of food?
Yeah.
So even meat can be made a profit business if they have to promote non-vegetarian like poultries. So choosing vegetarian, does it have roots to Brahmins culture, Hindutva culture? One. Also related to this question is, you said our traditional practice of food. Could you connect both?
So the whole, of course, it's definitely related to this idea, Brahmanical idea of classifying food as pure and impure and touchable and untouchable. And in fact, it is not just the food itself, but it's the people who are eating itself who are classified in such a way. And like most of the Brahmins or those who call themselves vegetarian, they do get animal sources of food through milk and dairy, right? And they are the ones who are holding the power. They are the ones who are making decisions in the country, and they have always looked for cheap diets, and the cheapest diet that they can push to the rest of the country is cereals. So a lot of studies have shown that when people have like livestock, when they have poultry, when they have when you have a local economy of animals, those people are able to overcome malnutrition. Same with the fishing communities which live on the coast. When they're able to eat the fish that they get from through fishing, it protects them from malnutrition. It also protects them from economic disaster. And what is happening is this whole local economy also is being broken, and people's local resources and what is they've eaten traditionally is being broken down. And in the PDS, if you see, or even if you see in the midday meals, okay, in the PDS, the main food that they're given is rice or any other cereal. They're not even given pulses properly, and they're not given oils or anything else. Maybe some sugar sometimes. But in the midday meals, we are seeing this happening where there's a process of indoctrination. Children are not just being denied those foods, but they're also being told that it is inferior. So many of the children and parents have said that the teachers tell them, if you want your body to develop, you eat meat. If you want your brains to develop, you eat vegetarian. But for brain to develop also, you need animal foods. You need fats, because a lot of vitamins like A, D, E and K can be absorbed only through, if you have fat, if you're eating fats. So there's no scientific basis for the kind of misinformation. But unfortunately in India, most of the principals, most of the teachers, most of the people who give information, or the so-called knowledge bearers, are the ones who have this wrong idea about animal foods, and they keep pushing it to the children. Children are ashamed to eat foods that they're eating at home. Parents tell us that children don't want to take the food that they eat at home, they don't want to take it to school, because there's so much of children are treated like people make fun of them or insult them or humiliate them, and because of that the children itself say we don't want to eat. So this is a very dangerous situation. In fact, children come home and tell their parents, why do you want to eat? Why do you want to do Gauhatya? Why you want to eat beef? Why do you want to eat eggs? I want to study well, so I want to, go pure vegetarian.